Speaking of which, let us bring on one of the best, absolutely best observers of the media in the business, our own John Nolte from the Daily Wire, the Noltenator, who has been doing such a fantastic job detailing the lies and the false stories that the press is telling. Have we got him? Oh, Mike, there he is. You're on.
I'm on.
Sorry to keep you waiting. How's it going, John?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. You are doing a terrific job, my friend. I mean, your stuff is absolutely indispensable, and it really is very cool. So I want to ask you, there's a bunch of stuff I want to ask you about. I mean, I want to get back to the media, but first I want to talk to you about Donald Trump for a minute, because here's what I'm finding, okay? I'm finding this three-level disparity, three things going on at once that are kind of giving me cognitive dissonance. One is Donald Trump, who keeps saying things that then his own people take back. We're going to take Iraqi oil, we're against the EU, we're, all this stuff. And then his own people go out and sort of say different stuff. On the other hand, you got the media, which I think you and I can safely agree has lost its collective mind. I mean, it is basically just spewing its imaginative conspiracies and all this stuff. In the middle, between these two things, the administration seems to be running quite well. I mean, things are happening, things that I never thought I'd see, a great Supreme Court pick, all these good and legal executive orders, things that are going well. And Congress is frozen. So it seems to be frozen, maybe not. How do you feel Donald Trump is doing, and do you have, I know you're a big Trump supporter. That's one of the reasons I'm kind of between you and Ben, because I like what Trump is doing, but I worry. He gives me anxiety, Does it bother you when Trump speaks so inexactly, when he says, I won the biggest electoral, win ever and all this stuff, and when he speaks so inexactly, does that bother you?
No, it doesn't, because I know, I don't know why he does it, but I know the effect of why he does it. And he's just trying to keep people off balance. He's especially trying to goad and troll the media. And a lot of people will say, I know we're going to talk about Milo later maybe, and that's another example. People will sometimes say things that in quotes and in headlines, you scratch your head and you say, well, that's not right. But then when you see the existential goal that they're trying to hit, it makes a little more sense. And Trump understands better than any Republican ever elected to anything that the media is the enemy of the American people, that the media creates these phony boundaries where they decide that they are going to decide what's true, they are going to decide what's moral, they're going to decide what's racism. And Republican after Republican has been doomed by playing that game, by going on CNN and agreeing to those parameters. And look, and now things are so insane that securing the border, this is how far the media's moved the Overton window. Securing the border is controversial. It's racism. It's Nazism. And what Trump is doing with everything he does to belittle, befuddle, denigrate, demean the media is he is seizing back control of that. And in the media, you see, the media will downplay his election. They'll lie and they'll say the Russians won the election. They'll lie and they'll say that cheating won the election or James Comey won the election. So they're trying to move the window here. And then Trump says, I had the greatest election victory in the history of America. And he's trying to nudge it, and he's just doing what they're doing. He's playing their game. And this isn't, you can keep your doctor if you want to keep your doctor. This isn't a videotape caused the Benghazi terror attack. This is Trump trolling. This is Trump just working them. And I don't care about these untruths, because they're meaningless in the long run. They don't affect my life, and it's just part of an ongoing war that I think Trump's winning.
Let me give two examples two different things that I think fall into two different categories. One was his press conference, which I thought was a masterpiece. I thought the press conference, we went into that press conference and it was Trump is a Russian spy. That was the narrative. And we came out of the press conference and he was mean to us, like they went scattering like little children, being chased by the boogeyman. And it was brilliant. I mean, I've never seen a politician seize the narrative back from a hostile force like that. That's one side. So there you and I agree, and I don't really care if he gets the electoral votes wrong, and I'm with you. Then when he says, we should take the oil from Iraq, and James Mattis goes over there and says, look, we're not taking the oil from Iraq. And McMaster says, when you alienate the populace, you are fighting for the enemy, And I wonder, is that something that maybe is in a different category? Is that something where we should hope that Trump maybe reins himself in a little bit?
No, I think that when he says to Iraq, I'm going to take your oil, what he's doing is the same thing when he says to us that he's going to make Mexico pay for the wall. What he's doing to Iraq is he's saying, I am willing to go this far. He's negotiating. This is how far I'm willing to go. I'm going to take your frickin' oil. And then that way, instead of the negotiation being here, it's like this. And it's the same thing when he tells the population, I'm going to make Mexico pay for the wall. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. It might. But what I did know when he said that was that we were damn sure going to get a wall. And that's what he's doing. And I think that that's what, I forget the woman's name. I wish I could name her because it was a brilliant quote. But she said, too many people the media takes Trump literally.
Yes, yeah.
And we don't. And we understand what he's doing. And the media is intentionally being hyper literal in order to continue to try and bedevil him with this phony fact checking. And he just won't play the game. He's not going to let himself be twisted in knots. He's not going to let himself get wrapped around the axle of being precisely careful about everything he says, about having to worry about a figure of speech like Trump, Obama founded ISIS becoming a big problem, because we all know what he means.
Yeah, we do know what he means.
And
it's
so
true, yeah.
Until he tells me I can keep my insurance, until he tells me a lie like that that's going to affect my life, I don't care what he does, because he's got a much bigger strategy in mind, and it's working very effectively.
And you think this is conscious? You don't think that he just has a sort of native feel for the media? You think he sits down and says, now I'm going to do this and drive him crazy?
I think, listen, I remember it was 2 years ago, and the rumors had started that Trump might run again. And people were already laughing at him on Twitter. And I remember tweeting out very clearly, do not underestimate this guy. You do not become a pop culture icon in America for 30 years unless you've got some savvy. You do not become the king of real estate in the world, especially in Manhattan, unless this is a very, very, very smart guy. I mean, forget everything else, forget all the nonsense around it. He was the only, and this is what I remembered, even though they made fun of him at the correspondence dinner, all the other stuff. He was the only guy who could get Barack Obama to show his birth certificate. Now, I was never a birther.
Right.
But that was something Barack Obama should have showed us, because that is because America, it wasn't just racists using it against him. People were really concerned about that.
Right.
And this you cannot underestimate this guy. He is brilliant, and now he's the president. He's the president of the United States. And 45 guys have done that? I mean, this is a very smart guy.
I agree that he's smart. I think the narrative that he's some kind of dolt is just insane. You cannot he has survived three, not just survived, but he has triumphed in three extremely difficult arenas. It doesn't happen it may happen by accident once, but not three times like that. That's true. All right, so let's talk about Milo, because I feel differently about Milo. You wrote a really interesting Facebook post. You know Milo, you like him. I've had one lengthy conversation with him, and I have a lot of sympathy with him because I know what artists are like. I know that artists are damaged people. They're a little crazy. He's been through a lot of stuff. But I have problems with Milo that go back over everything that he's done. Tell people what your take on this is.
I think of Milo the same way that I think about Trump, and I think about George Carlin once said something where he said, and I'm going to paraphrase him here, but these are his words. These are not my words, so I don't want anybody to think these are my words.
Okay.
But he was talking about language, and he was talking about how it's not the word, it's the person who uses the word. And he said, and this is the quote, he said, the reason Richard Pryor can say the word nigger is because Richard Pryor's a nigger, unquote. Now, you could take that quote and you could put it in a headline and it could say, George Carlin called Richard Pryor the N-word.
Right.
And that's a fact. But what was he doing there? Why was he saying that? George Carlin's no racist.
Right.
Why was he saying that? He was making a bigger point about that sometimes you have to use words, sometimes you have to keep these words alive. Because if you don't, that thing we keep talking about, that graph, it keeps moving this way and this way and this way and this way. And it was one of the rare times that Carlin was actually attacking the left. And that's what, when I hear Milo say these incredible things that I would never say and do things that I would never do, I see what he's doing. He's a provocateur. He's saying the left can say anything. The left can say anything. They can trash women. They can trash blacks. They can trash gays if they're conservative. There's nothing the left can't say. And what Milo is saying is that I'm going to go way over here and maybe we can get to here. And he's protecting free speech. Now, he does it in ways that I don't think is okay. He does things I would never do. I'm a bit of a provocateur myself. But you need people like that. We need people like that. This is a very repressive society we live in. The former First Lady, just a couple of years ago, told us we couldn't use the word bossy. We can't call things that are dumb gay anymore. You can't, and it just keeps going and going and going. And I think in that respect, Milo is people like Milo and people like him are extremely important to our society. They are the canaries in the coal mine of free speech.
You know, it's funny. My friend Owen Brennan of Madison McQueen, who is an excellent communicator and basically makes political videos with Hollywood style, he says that artists, the street artists, the guys who put up posters and signs, they establish the boundaries of what's acceptable to say. And one of my problems with Milo is he's essentially a performance artist, and as a performance artist, he has every right to be outrageous and crazy and terrible, but he seems to have this desire to be a sort of political sage, and when you accept a speaking post at CPAC, it seems to me that you are saying, oh, yes, I am now a member of respectable society. And the thing about artists, I am an artist, I know this, we don't belong in respectable society. You shouldn't invite me anywhere. That to me is the problem. He's trying to cross that line, I think, out of personal ambition. And that's one of my problems. The other problem I have with him is he forgives and gives cover to genuinely cruel and obscene acts, like some of the things that have been tweeted at Ben, some of the things that have been tweeted at David French over at NRO, stuff that it's not okay. It's not okay to put a picture of a guy's kid in a gas chamber, and when Milo says, oh, they're just being kind of cute, rebellious young people, that really bugs me. It bugs me a lot more than anything he had to say about little kids, because he's obviously so messed up on sexually that, who knows what he's saying. But that bugs me.
The one thing I don't think Milo, and I don't disagree with him. Again, there's a lot of things he's done that I wouldn't do, and a lot of them are to Ben, our friend. But I think one of the things that Milo doesn't get enough credit for is that he is gay and Jewish, and he is just as hard on gays and Jews as he is on anyone else, and he's often criticized for that. And I think the complete opposite is true. I think what you have is a guy who doesn't find himself, or at least his identity, superior, because he's willing to attack and savage himself when he calls himself a faggot. He says it all the time. I never use that word. And I think that's something that he deserves credit for. But one thing I said in the piece is that if we are living in a society where we are not shocked and insulted and offended, we are not living in a free society. And you need guys like Milo out there, and you especially need guys like Milo out there on the right. And yes, they are outrageous, and sometimes they go much further than I would. I don't know what too far is in a free society. It's very hard to offend me. I'm a conservative Christian on Twitter, so it's very hard to offend me. I've been hit with everything. I live in a culture that besieges me with insults and questioning my humanity, and I've been living in that culture my entire life. Violence offends me. Promoting violence offends me. It's very hard to get me offended about words and pictures and things like that. It's violence that I worry about, especially political violence.
Yeah.
So I have a little more tolerance than I think some other people do. But overall, I want to live in a society where I am offended, where I am shocked, and where I'm insulted, because that means I'm living in a free society.
I'm with you 100% on this. I can't remember the last time somebody said something that shocked me. As you say, violence, cruelty shocks me.
Right.
However, if I go to a dinner at CPAC, if I go to a dinner at the Heritage Foundation, if I, and this guy who does those things stands up and talks, unless he is talking about his art form and why he does what he does, that sort of disturbs me. It disturbs me because it means that Overton window that you're saying may have shifted a little too far and taken us with it. I'm a little bit concerned about that. I think Milo has made some real errors. I have a lot of respect for his talent. I think he is a talented performance artist. I think that he is doing something.
Listen, I agree. He reminds me a lot of Andrew Breitbart, but Andrew Breitbart didn't have that mean streak.
Yeah, that's it.
There's a mean streak in Milo.
Andrew Breitbart didn't have a bigoted bone in his body, and I think that I worry about this with Milo.
Yeah, and again, I don't. And that's another thing I was going to say about Richard Pryor and what George Carlin said about Richard Pryor. Just because George Carlin said that, it doesn't mean he's a racist.
Right.
And I'm not sure I'm prepared to ascribe that motive to Milo, because I think it's the same thing that George Carlin did, where Milo is using words and he's saying things for a larger purpose, for the larger purpose of moving the Overton window, which does need to be moved. And so I'm not ready to ascribe that motive to him. Because in my personal dealings with him, I've never seen anything like that. And like I said, he is as hard on his own identity as he is on anybody else's, if not harder.
Okay. All right. Well, who's going to win the Oscar? What picture?
I think, what the heck's out there? Have I...
Moonlight, La La Land.
La La Land's going to win.
La La Land's
La La Land is really overrated, but it's nice. It's got a great ending.
Yes, it got. His last 5 minutes are terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, the last 5 minutes are amazing.
Yeah.
But I didn't think the movie, and I thought the dancing and singing was like high school play level.
All right, I got to let you go, but it's great to see you. I only get to see you on these pictures. I hope your wife is well, and come back and let's talk some more.
Anytime, my friend. Thanks.
All right, take care. The great John Nolte, the mighty Noltenator, always really interesting to talk to him, and I think he deserves to have his opinion part of the discussion, because I think he's been right often. He's been right when some of us have gotten it wrong.